Ladies and gentlemen, our next live keynote address is from Lisa Ventura. She's an award-winning cybersecurity specialist, content writer and speaker, and she has been giving keynotes at this series of conferences for a number of years. She's the founder of Cybersecurity Unity, a global community organization that's dedicated to bringing individuals and companies together who actively work in cybersecurity to help combat the growing cyber threat. And her presentation title is Fostering Greater Collaboration in Cybersecurity to Combat the Growing Cyber Threat. Lisa, really looking to hear what you're going to say. I gather the 4 takeaways from the event will be: what are the main cybersecurity threats that we should be concerned about? Why collaboration is necessary in cloud security on a global scale? How to remove barriers to greater collaboration in cloud security? And the benefits of greater collaboration in cloud security to help combat the ever-growing cyber threat. Lisa, good to have you here, and the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for the warm welcome. It's an honor to be here again today. So I'll get straight into the talk that I'm going to do, which is something that's a huge passion of mine, which is fostering greater collaboration within our industry to go some small way to combating the global cyber threat that we face day in and day out. So in recent years, as we all know, cybersecurity has come to the forefront like never before. And some recent research that was undertaken by ESET has shown that there's no decline at all in the level of cyber activities that are being undertaken, and particularly that are being conducted by advanced persistent threat groups in countries like Russia, Iran, China, and North Korea, for example. And although it's a while since Russia invaded Ukraine, it still continues to be the prime target of Russia-aligned APT groups, such as the infamous Sandworm, but also Goromida, Invisimol, Callisto, and Turles. So there's a real risk still going on there. And in addition to this, the aerospace and defense industries continue to be of high interest to career-aligned groups, along with cryptocurrency and financial firms and exchanges. So all of this really highlights just how many cyber threats there are still out there, how much ransomware, phishing, and various other types of cyber attacks are coming at organizations and individuals every single day and at every turn. So cyber attacks and data breaches, as we all know, are still being announced at a rate of knots, and these attacks are taking place against organizations, I think, never mind on a daily basis, it's by the minute and the second. And only last week, a huge vulnerability called Move It was announced that has affected Boots, Aer Lingus, British Airways, and the BBC. Am I the only one that's realized they're looking at targeting the beginning of the alphabet with the A's and the B's, and what else there is to possibly come? And there was also the recent Capita data breach. And just last week, even Manchester University announced that they'd suffered a cyber incident. This is likely to be ransomware actors. And that's just a tiny snapshot of what's going on out there. We're continuing to be hit by major cyber attacks. And despite the media's attention on them, there have been many other attacks on smaller businesses as well that have caused major damage to different organizations. And last year, 39% of UK businesses, regardless of their size, have identified cyber attacks within their organizations. So with such high-profile attacks being announced daily, organizations of all sizes cannot afford to ignore the growing cyber threat any longer. So in the UK alone, there are a myriad of different organisations all working really hard against the cybercrime threat. And these include things like the National Cybersecurity Centre, who focus on the technical side of what's going on. The UK Cybersecurity Council, that are tasked with looking at standards and ethics in our industry, and also career pathways into cybersecurity. UKC3, which covers all the different cyber clusters across the UK. The National Cyber Resilience Centre Group, that covers all the cyber resilience centres across the UK. Also DCIST, Action Fraud, Tech UK, the Regional Organised Crime Unit. That's again just a small snapshot of all these different organisations that are doing incredible work within our industry to really promote what's going on and also to help protect us all. But do you know which one to go to when there are so many and with so much duplicated effort? So I hear a lot about we've got X problem, but we don't know where to turn. So on a global basis, remote work, digital currency, and e-learning, and the momentum of digitalisation is only hastened by the global public health crisis and pandemic that we had, accelerated the extent to which we experience life online. So with digital technology enabling people to connect at an unprecedented scale and speed without the concern for proximity, it's also allowed malicious actors to do the same. So sharing innovations, skills and tools, cyber threat actors present a growing concern to governments and businesses as attacks now become a lot more frequent and complex. And cyber risks are now part of the broader UK's risk outlook. So similarly to how we look at terrorism and interstate war and other security risks, cyber risks are now a big part of our approach to understanding the broader country risk environment. So today, cybersecurity really is truly borderless. And it would seem that in this new world where cyber attacks take advantage of a global network of resources to implement their attacks, global cybersecurity cooperation and collaboration is what's needed to provide visibility into attacks and slow these attackers down. So if local, state and government and global governments can share critical information collaboratively among their entities within the private sector, this can provide actionable intelligence on current and future attacks. And as a result, security professionals have been asking themselves a fundamental question. So how can we ensure greater collaboration on a global scale to help combat the growing cyber threat? So there does seem to continue to be significant challenges with global cybersecurity collaboration. So let's take a look at some of the barriers to this. So one of the first things is the absence of common language, terminologies, and process for sharing. So each enterprise and government entity use very disparate set of languages, technologies, and processes that may make the collaboration process quite inefficient. So most cybersecurity intelligence is handled via traditional data sharing, such as emails, PDFs, and sometimes quite antiquated manual processes that cannot support the speed at which attacks today penetrate and infect organizations. And then, of course, there's fear and concerns over sharing information. So enterprises, organizations, and governments will often struggle over the extent of attack information that they can reveal. And concerns range from whether the information shared is revealing too much about their business to competitors and nation states, that it might violate user privacy, or it could be used by regulators against them. So this trust issue is compounded when government agencies are brought into the mix, in particular ones such as the FBI that have a long established history of a closed and secretive culture. So the challenge there is how to develop a trust framework that can specify who information should be shared with and how much can be shared. Also, there's a lack of resources and motivation to share. So many organizations don't believe in the benefits of sharing details of an attack or breach, and there are no incentives or fiduciary responsibility to organizations to disclose such a breach unless it impacts a particular compliance requirement in their geographical location. And there are, of course, more negative implications of sharing the details of a breach, such as lost customers, lawsuits, and privacy implications. In addition, there's the dilemma that once information about a breach is shared, customers that are impacted must be notified promptly. And notification of breaches must also be done in an expedient manner that requires significant resources that may not be available in smaller organizations. So governments need to play a major role in facilitating this alignment to foster greater collaboration in our industry. And industry associations that operate in and fully appreciate the increasingly dangerous cyber threat landscape must also take the initiative for real progress to be made. And with cybersecurity being truly borderless today, the attacks we're seeing do have a major global impact. And of course, there's the third-party supply chain issue as well. And we've seen this quite recently last week with the attacks that took place on Aer Lingus, Boots, and British Airways, for example. So despite this, countries are largely still operating in silos regarding their cybersecurity, and they tend to favour a nationalistic approach. And as of yet, there hasn't really been a significant global movement or event that's focused specifically just on cybersecurity among major world leaders. We haven't really seen so far the 193 nations of the UN, the G7 or the G20 get up there with industry experts and have that critical discussion on what can be done at a global level. And there needs to be a big call to action to address this. So the cybersecurity industry really needs to act right now and communicate globally to foster that greater collaboration. And it really does require the leadership and insights of those key industry organizations like GCHQ, the National Cybersecurity Centre, and the Global Cybersecurity Allowance to try to bring governments and other similar organizations to get together on a global scale. Government machinery, as we all know, is often traditionally slow, and left to its own devices, it can't keep up with fast-moving and agile cyber threat actors. And additionally, most decision makers don't have the technical knowledge required to enact those proper steps in this space. So unless they start to have collaborative discussions with industry organizations, who often have very deep networks with a multidisciplinary approach, then they won't address the challenges that are coming up at the pace of change that's required. So education about the growing cyber threat is absolutely key. And a critical aspect of this approach is for the industry to come together to educate governments on just how serious a problem cyber threats are and the potentially catastrophic impact that they might have. And governments globally need to start treating cyber threats and cybercrime as acts of terrorism. And I think once we've achieved that, then governments will be able and willing, I hope, to start working more closely with organizations. And we are seeing some great progress. As I mentioned earlier, we've got DCIST, the Department for Science and Technology, that are working really hard here in the UK with organisations in terms of the growing cyber threat, but it really needs to happen on a much more global scale. So once governments are working more closely with industry and treating cyber threats with the seriousness that they absolutely deserve, they can develop the necessary global infrastructure to foster that greater collaboration. And this could be through the development of an international communications system, for example, enabling intelligence to be rapidly passed between governments and organizations in the same way as there are tsunami and terror warnings. And with so little communication occurring when there's intelligence known about potential movements in this space, communication around potential attacks that have occurred and letting the rest of the world know about them in a much quicker way is key. And the cyber industry must be at the forefront of such an approach and start to communicate and pass that intelligence between organizations around the world in a safe and secure way. So collaboration with government, associations and councils and other key stakeholders in cybersecurity globally can also reduce the time between the discovery of new threats and protection implementation, which in turn will allow organizations to keep up with the ever-evolving threat landscape. And the speeding up of the delivery of threat intelligence is absolutely crucial for building a strong cybersecurity program. And vendors as well should work on making it as easy as possible to break down the silos between different security disciplines. And traditionally, I know that there's a lot of competition within our industry, and vendors and other organizations in particular are often reluctant to share information or share what's going on and those key challenges and threats within cyberspace because of that fear of competition. But it really is something that needs to be done to foster that greater collaboration that's so needed. So cybersecurity is not a competition, and there's room for everyone. So all the different associations, the councils and other groups within cybersecurity have been founded globally, and they do tend to work alone and work to keep out any perceived outsiders. Now, this could be because of a perceived competitive threat, and sometimes it could be entirely justified for organizations to keep their distance from others. But if all these important bodies globally joined forces and work together to help combat the growing cyber threat, this might go some small way to making some real progress in our industry. So I'm going to make a call to action to anyone listening to today. And that is, if these associations and groups in cyber join up to work in a collaborative fashion, this will really help to establish a more sound, successful and strategic framework for our industry. And by making a real conscious effort to improve information sharing globally, as well as through those government and law enforcement agencies, the world will benefit hugely from gaining intelligence and insights that will help strengthen defenses against cybercrime. And that can only be a good thing for us all. So I've popped some further reading and resources on this topic. There was a special in Women in Security magazine on collaborating better in cybersecurity, and also the importance of cross-sector cybersecurity collaboration and why collaboration makes cybersecurity stronger. This was a piece of work that was done from the British Computing Society, where I'm a member. And it really did focus on the benefits of collaboration and why it's so beneficial for our industry. I'm happy to take any questions from any of you if you've got any that are listening today. And I've popped my contact details up on the screen as well. And if any of you want to meet with me separately or just have a chat around this whole piece on collaboration and how as an industry we can be better and do this differently, I'd love to hear from you. And I'll be in the networking area as much as I can today around the other brilliant presentations that we've got as part of this event. So thank you very much indeed for listening to me today. And if there are any questions, please do let me know in the chat.
Lisa, thank you so much for that great presentation. Really welcomed it, and some of the really good, new, thought-provoking thoughts that you brought out. Thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you again in future conferences.